Libraries are also important, and I believe should become more important, in what is sometimes referred to as the third place. In Vancouver's increasingly dense metropolis, there's an increasing need for space that is not home, not work, and not the shopping mall. This is the library, and a key part of the commons. Libraries have a proud tradition of managing common property, keeping collections that could be shared for mutual benefit. For many, libraries provide the only free and available access to that other, more recent addition to the public commons, the internet. Academically and socially, we are also expanding on the notion of the learning commons, a place where people come together to do research, to share, to clarify, to discuss, and to debate. Many libraries, I know, are also creating creator spaces, places where people can pursue projects, sometimes even create printed and bound copies of their own books. Thus, from an engagement perspective, the library is not an institution that provides a service to its client base so much as it's a place, real and virtual, in which people can serve themselves and serve their communities. Now, I have a couple of favorite examples of this conception of libraries in action. One is SFU's Kanagata Maru project, which is an online archive assembled with extensive community involvement, participation, to promote a greater public understanding of that unfortunate 1914 incident. The result is a remarkable collection, including government documents, oral histories, private records, artistic endeavors, and interviews. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I really encourage you to do so. It's being used now in schools and elsewhere as an educational tool. Another is a project called Chinese Canadian Stories, a one-stop web portal dedicated to collecting, archiving, and distributing information about Chinese Canadian history. Led by Professor Henry Yu at UBC, SFU's library has played a crucial role in supporting the development of the portal's infrastructure and providing content. And I must say, this project's success reinforces my earlier point about the importance and potential when groups collaborate and work together, and organizations engage rather than competing. Both projects are examples of crowdsourcing, for which we can thank forerunners like Wikipedia. But as we know from these and other web-based crowdsourcing initiatives, the best are those that are managed by professional librarians. This approach to harnessing the energy and wisdom of crowds reveals two other positive aspects of community engagement for universities and libraries. First, engagement can create direct benefits for an organization, such as by enriching a collection or increasing curatorial capacity. Second, the very act of being engaged enables an organization to demonstrate its value to the community. On the first point, when I spoke earlier about SFU leveraging its physical space, I didn't mention our original campus on Burnaby Mountain. Well, things are happening there too. You know, until recently, SFU Burnaby was a commuter campus, relatively isolated, and I think built intentionally to be isolated in that ivory tower model. There was no contiguous community with which to engage, no ancillary services that our students, faculty, and staff could readily access. Well, all that's changed with the creation of University, a model sustainable community. University currently houses about 3,500 people. It's going to grow to close to 10,000. Half of the current population work or study at SFU. And if you haven't been on top of the mountain, I invite you to come. You'll find shops and restaurants. You'll find a LEED Gold elementary school created from a recycled building, and a daycare that has been aptly described as the greenest child care center on the planet and destined to be designated as Canada's first living building. So University has been an incredible boon. And as so often happens when we engage, whether through our students working in the community, our researchers seeking solutions to the social and environmental challenges we face, or the university itself developing everything from a community arts center in the downtown east side to the center of a revitalized community in Surrey, or a new sustainable community on Burnaby Mountain, we find that our institutions and our students and our faculty and those who inhabit it benefit immeasurably from these efforts. On the second point, that of demonstrating our value to the community, it's important for universities and libraries, especially in tight economic times, to demonstrate to taxpayers our worth, to enable taxpayers to see the return they are getting on their investment. And here again, a commitment to engagement can help us to make our case. As I noted earlier, libraries have a rich history of engagement, and library users, like library alumni, tend to be incredibly loyal and enthusiastic supporters. In both instances, however, these groups are relatively small. By expanding our reach, by engaging more fully with the communities we serve in more diverse ways, not only do we make a greater contribution, but in the process, we gain much-needed community support. In my own discipline of law, there's a saying that justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Well, a similar principle applies here. For the public to support universities and libraries, it's not enough that we do good work. Citizens must see, understand, and better still, experience the value of the work that we do. The great thing about this is that for those of us who believe in engaged universities and believe in engaged libraries, doing right by others is likely to persuade others to do right by us. David Lankus, who you heard from this morning, has a great description of libraries in his most recent book, Expect More. He says, bad libraries only build collections, good libraries build services, but great libraries build communities. That is what you do. And given the power of information, your positive economic impact is easily as extensive as your social contribution. At a time when some governments are cutting funding to libraries and archives, we must do everything in our power to demonstrate the importance of libraries in nurturing socially and economically vibrant communities. Well, I'd like to leave you now with two other challenges briefly, both of which I acknowledge are immensely difficult, but in which I think librarians have a very important role to play. The first is to engage enthusiastically in the task of resolving the tension between authors' rights and users' rights. Not a small topic, I know. I'm exceedingly proud of the efforts that SFU has made and continues to make information as freely available as possible. Open source exercises such as our Public Knowledge Project put important information in the hands of the people who need it to advance social understanding and societal wealth. But I am equally conscious that in our transition to a paywall world, newspaper, magazine, and book publishers are struggling and in many cases are failing. And content creators are increasingly challenged to survive. We have to find a way to acknowledge the value of information even as we fight for the right to make it available to the widest possible audience. I have no prediction here. Unfortunately, I have no solution. But one thing I do know, I know that librarians have a crucial part to play in resolving that tension and helping ensure that we have the content that we wish to share so broadly in the future. Finally, I want to urge you to hold all of us to account. I began today by talking about the temptations of Google, its promise and its shortcomings. One thing Google does especially well is to reinforce one's biases. In this complicated world, whatever one wants to believe, Google's there to provide reinforcing evidence. There is always some source at the ready to reconfirm one's preconceptions, right or wrong. Well, that way disaster lies. The information that we need is often the information we don't want. It's the book we didn't ask for. It's the academic paper that challenges our most fundamental conviction and forces us to rethink our positions in a quest for the right answers, in a quest for the truth. So please check our facts, challenge our preconceptions, bring us those books and articles that we would prefer didn't exist. Even when we are drowning in information, throw us the lifelines that enable us to survive stormy seas, to find firm ground, and ultimately to attain wisdom. More generally, I encourage you in the spirit of David Lankus to be community builders and to engage boldly in the smallest of professional circles to the largest of public squares. By doing so, you will give us reason to be optimistic, not only about the future of libraries, but about the future of humankind. I thank you.